Right, I've called this advanced outlining. It's just more hints and tips on outlining really. I am assuming you've watched the first lesson on outlining. If you haven't done so, I'll put a link somewhere here at the top and go and have a look at that first, because this one does assume you've seen that. As you know, I prefer to use piping bags, and that's what I'll be using throughout this demonstration. I've got a sheet of greaseproof paper here. I think in some countries you call it parchment paper. Just make sure it's I've got a good line, crease in that, and I will cut it down. Never leave it till you're on your last piping bag before you do this. Always have plenty of piping bags around when you're working. If you go down to your last piping bag and you need one, you need to change your bag quickly, you're stuck and you'll be tempted to carry on using the old bag rather than changing to a new one when you should. I should say, never be afraid to change your piping bag. You're not wasting the outliner. You can move it from the old bag into the new one, so you're not wasting that. The bags cost, I don't know, fractions of a penny each, and it's better to do that than struggling with a bag where the ends messed up, it's become wet, it's opened up too much. Or sometimes, honestly, the piping bags just don't seem to want to work for no particular reason. And in those instances, just change the bag. Hopefully with this knife I'll be able to cut all of those. The cuts aren't dramatically important apart from in the middle of the diagonal. That's where the nib of your bag is going to be, and that's the bit there which is important. Alright, so we have plenty of piping bags. I'll put most of those to the side. I've got other piles of piping bags around here somewhere, and I'll just add them to that. Keep this one out because we'll use it. I did show you how to fold a piping bag in the last video. What I may not emphasised enough is one, rolling away from the line. You've got a line that goes on the bottom. Let me just put some outliner in there. Don't worry about putting too much in, because you can always put the remainder back in the bottle. So the line goes down, fold in the wings. Now make this a roll. You might fold for the first one, but make it a roll. By making it a roll rather than folding it over, it means you'll be able to roll it down all the time. If you do a fold, you can only fold it when you've got enough room to do so. If you make it a roll, you'll be able to roll it down all the time. And obviously by having the line at the back and rolling away from it, I'm tightening it up. If I were to go the other way, I'd open up this seam. So make sure the line's at the back, roll away from it. As normal, I'll cut off a little bit and just see. In fact, that's got it first go. You can always cut off a little bit more, you can't add it back on. Right, I've got a bit down here. I'm ready to pipe. Now the main thing on this is wet on wet, so try and do all your outlining in one go. But if you need to stop, and you stop quite frequently to move the board around, etc. So when you need to stop, try and stop somewhere where there's a join anyway. There we go, we're just picking it up in the wet each time. But when you stop, try and stop somewhere where there's a break anyway. And that way you're keeping all your longer lines nice and neat. Wet on wet like that, it will all blend down together. Okay, so that's wet on wet and it's blending. Now there may be times when you don't want it to blend quite so much. Let me put that somewhere where hopefully I'm not going to lean on it in a minute. Now, here's 3 instances. Let's put this underneath so you can see it. Now, this hatch I did whilst they were both wet. And you can see the joins have blended one into another. On this one, and I'm hoping you can see, I piped these two and let them dry, and then I piped this one, or sorry, these two. And I'm hoping you can see there's a slight raise there, and it has given a hatch effect. Now that may be an effect you want on purpose at times, and it's quite possible. The third way to do it, if you look down here, these are all dry now. And obviously I can just hatch it like that. Make sure it goes down, otherwise you're going to have paint seeping around. But again, you've got this raised hatch effect rather than the blend effect. Now you might be asking, when would you use that? Okay, let me show you. Now this is a method of outlining I must admit I don't use. A couple of people have told me about it. I haven't really seen anyone using it, but a couple of people have told me about it, but I can't think of a circumstance in which I would want to use it. But I'm going to show you anyway, and it's your choice. Now, if you're only good at piping straight lines, I can see this is good. Pipe the line, leave it to dry, peel it off, and we're going to then use it just as if it were adhesive lead. You know, the adhesive lead strips you can buy. And we're going to just put it on our design, and like the adhesive lead, just press it down as you go. I should have planned this off better, because particularly with adhesive lead I would have checked what was going to end up going over and above what else. And you can see how you'd build your design up bit by bit like that. As I say, I cannot honestly think of a circumstance where I would use this, or even if anyone else would, unless you're only good at piping straight lines. But if you do it, do put a bit more thought into it than I have and work out what's going to go under and over what and where. But anyway, I've shown it to you. Not a favourite of mine. Probably not something I would ever do apart from a demonstration video like this. Okay, we've looked at that and that. I just want to show you a couple of things here. One, you don't always want a straight line. Sometimes when you're doing plant stems, etc., just make sure that hasn't closed up, you want a line and you purposely want to put a few bobbles into it, and there's absolutely no reason why you can't do that. Just pause, put a bobble in, move. I'm sure you cake decorators out there will be able to do lots of sort of fancy outlining. And the same thing with little marks on the inside of the flowers. So it's not always a nice straight line you want to do. You sometimes want to do other stuff. Now, I make a big deal of saying if you make a mistake, leave it to dry, you can cut it out. It is possible at times, I'm not sure this is dry enough, I piped this only a little while ago, but it is possible. See that mistake there? You should just be, oh, maybe it's too dry now. Oops, there we go. You should just be able to move it over and put it, that bit's going to have to come off, but just push it over when it's not too dry into the other outliner. Another thing you can do, and this probably has got too dry now, is you can just add bits into gaps, etc., or thicken stuff up by adding a little bit of outliner, as long as it hasn't dried too much. Okay, I will leave it at that. I hope that's given you some extra ideas. Practice is the answer with outlining. It's always practice. Good luck with it. Happy crafting.